In this episode, we're diving deep into the record that resurrected the Doors sound, stripping away the psychedelic haze and returning to raw blues, swaggering grooves, and Jim Morrison at his most primal. It's time to check in to Morrison Hotel. Stay with us.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff. And Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. I got to turn my headphones up so I can hear everybody. How's that, Eric? Do I sound good?
You sound fine.
I think I sound perfect in my mind.
In your mind?
How about I turned up my headphone monitor? Oh, my God.
Dean, I could listen to you read the phone book, man.
Where have I been my whole life?
Where
have I been my whole life? I can't believe it. Oh, Lord. Well, if it's your first time here, welcome. And I'm your oversized, ego-headed host, Dean. And Eric is here to keep me in check and keep things real for me. Things get too out of
the silent partner. I gotta
the silent nod of dissent. The head shake is all it takes.
There it is.
We've known each other for so long that
a slight grimace or perhaps a look of disdain.
And if you're returning, well, welcome back. We're falling into a nice rhythm of kind of certain artists. We're kind of revisiting their albums yearly and kind of going through the discography, which I kind of dig. I like kind of having stuff that we're going to reassess every year, which is kind of gives us some tent poles throughout the year to kind of anchor the stuff that we're doing. Later on this year, probably around December, we'll probably get Rob back for another Zeppelin album, because we did. The last one was November or December of last year. So we'll kind of, I like having those kind of things that we kind of, that kind of help us get from, month to month and kind of really stabilize our episodes, because there are so many bands that have such great discographies that you can't, some are one and done, right? Or two and done. But a lot of groups have a lot of stuff to pick from. So I like revisiting, and that's what we're doing today.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
I could have said that in so much less words, but
and
I get paid by the syllable. It's kind of like QVC. I don't know if you knew that. Like the hosts on QVC, they get paid for talking. So that's why, like when you watch QVC, they go into every. Oh, look at the metallic.
Wonder how much.
And the dial. And look at the dial goes from medium to low to high. It's like they just
How much more do they get for a syllable or
lots of adverbs and adjectives?
Yeah, right.
lots of varies and that. So we're here today and we're talking about the Doors album Morrison Hotel. But before that, we've got two guests that are at the registration desk wanting to check in. First one, he's wearing a Doors shirt, so I have to kind of give him, the first intro. It does not excuse him for having that Godfather poster on the floor in the back. But anyway, it's Mr. Rob DeStefano. How are you, Rob?
I'm good. Thanks again for having me.
Yeah,
as always.
I love coming on your podcast, and especially for a night like this one with the Doors.
Yeah,
so I appreciate it.
We Rob was recently just last seen in our ZZ Top.
Yeah.
And also along with him in the ZZ Top episode, joining him again, double teaming. It's like the WWF. I don't say WWE because I don't go for it. It's WWF. Mr. Christopher Clark, welcome back as well.
Good to be here, man. I'm pumped to do this. This is a great record. So I was excited when you sent the email out.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. Just a little side note, pertaining to ZZ Top. Do you guys ever hear of the YouTube channel Wings of Pegasus?
No.
Okay. He's an English guy. He's a musician. But mainly what he does is people send stuff to him, and he's got like software that he puts it through. And the big thing that he's on, the big kick, is finding out whether people are lip syncing at their concerts, whether or not they're singing to backing tracks. So people will send him like, here's ZZ Top November 25th and here's ZZ Top November 28th in two different things. And the vocal sample signals line up exactly, and they should never line. If you're singing live, there should be some changes, some differences, even subtle, but they shouldn't even be that subtle. And it looks like ZZ Top, he literally takes the waveforms and lines them up, and they like match up exactly. And no one's show can match up exactly if you're singing live.
That's kind of disappointing.
ZZ Top is one of the. There's a lot of bands that are doing it. He just look him up on YouTube. Wings of Pegasus. And he's a musician, and he doesn't do this with any delight. Like it's not like he's like, oh, I knew it. People send him requests and like, can you check this? Can you check this out and see if it's if they're genuinely singing, and he knows all about pitch and notes. So he really is not just a guy. He really talks about it. So looks like ZZ Top may be miming.
That's like there's a whole Facebook group called the Sync Army, and it's a bunch of like raging Kiss fans that were pissed off on the last Kiss tour that Paul Stanley had been caught lip syncing a whole bunch, and it was like they were really angry. It was funny.
I also think there were some issues with playing as well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Of the drummer. Like the song had started and he wasn't even playing yet. Yep. Meanwhile, the cymbals are getting hit, and he's like, he wasn't even like playing yet. So, I guess it's going to be horses for courses. If you're okay with shelling out that kind of money, knowing that, or that being a potential, then you got it. It's up to you. But Wings of Pegasus is the YouTube channel. Anyway, let's get back into what we're talking about here, which is the Doors Morrison Hotel. Like we do on our episodes, we like to give you statistical information, so we're going to do that. So here we go. Let's talk some stats. This album was released in February of 1970. Very interesting. Produced by Paul Rothchild, who was the Doors producer up until pretty much the last album. But he was kind of like their assigned producer. There was only one single released on this album, believe it or not, and it was You Make Me Real. And it staggered up to number 50 on the Billboard charts, which again makes this album a very interesting release. It hit number 4 on Billboard, though, so it did very well. And it went 1 times platinum, so 1 million copies. But I think it went gold like very soon after it came out. It was, it sold. It sold well, despite which we're going to talk about. That in 1970, Eric, the Doors were pretty much in turmoil. They were not welcomed by concert promoters at this point. Right. Dates were 25 dates were canceled on their tour. Because of the antics of Jim Morrison, because the stuff he was doing he was taking it to the nth degree. And back then, even what he was doing was just getting to be too much. And the powers that be were like, we're just not, radio stations were kind of like, I don't know if it was tacit, stop playing Doors music as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I want to say it's sad but laughable at the same time. I mean, it just, why? I mean, a lot of it had to do with booze, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Trading one thing from another. But yeah, I think he just, and even the band at this point were just a little, or more than a little, I'm sure, beyond frustrated with him, So, yeah, it was an interesting, point in time. I mean, but the music, I felt how it changed from album to album.
Sure.
And in this case, he was doing things that were, I don't know. I don't know if it was intentional. I don't know if it was to make him just sort of like lean into what the music became. I'm not sure, so I'm not a big, I love the Doors, but I was never a big Jim Morrison fan.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to throw that out there. Just, if that makes sense. Just, from the standpoint of just admiring Jim Morrison.
Yeah.
No, that was never my bag. It was always about the band and what they did together collectively. So
yeah, not the legend.
Right. This whole like mythos of Jim and
the Lizard King.
Yeah, the so-called poet and all this, kind of. I think he kind of might have been great with that in the beginning, but then he kind of took it a little too far, like you were saying, Dean, at this point. And I think he kind of leaned into the sort of like the blues was more or less. I always enjoyed when he kind of stepped into that role and when it was singing that kind of stuff. It seemed to fit, and that's when he kind of backed off of the antics as much. He wasn't doing it as much.
Yeah, I think part of that because reality came crashing down. That he could be going to jail. He could be doing a lot of things. Chris, what do you got?
I was going to say, you talk about like things changing around this time and stuff, and how the music evolved. I think part of that was because as time progressed, Morrison's role in what was happening was becoming less and less. Like, I know people slam the Soft Parade as kind of like the sellout record, but if you look at the writing credits on that record, Morrison doesn't have nearly as many as he does on, the three that precede it. And then even on this record, what they do have is because they went through his notebooks and they like kind of like cobbled together lyrics from the shit that he scribbled down in the notebooks. A lot of it was like they took what he had and said, let's see what we can puzzle piece together and put together. I mean, even Waiting for the Sun was from the Waiting for the Sun session. So it's almost like, they did what they could. And I think that speaks to what Eric's saying. They did what they could as a band. Those three brilliant musicians took what Morrison could give them in spite of being such a mess at that point. I just listened to an interview where they referred to his alcoholic self as Jimbo. And I think Eric makes a good point. That's the argument my dad will always make is, did they really need to stop? And it's terrible that this man died. He was a talented artist. He, no doubt, he was a great vocalist. When he had his shit together, he was brilliant. But was it really? I think they could have been able to find another singer and kept going. And I think there's some stuff on those records afterwards that speaks to Eric's point that there are three guys that kind of get overshadowed by this legend. When in reality, it was a man that had a lot of demons and a lot of problems that he was not able to sort out in his lifetime.
Yeah, I think well to that point, just to not go too far down that road, but Rob, I think replacing Morrison is almost like replacing Kurt Cobain in Nirvana. Like they did audition people. They auditioned Iggy Pop among other people to take his place, but as much as Eric doesn't like this part of what was going on, there is an aura and a mystique and a persona to Morrison that is not just like replacing a lead singer, right? Rob, it's a little bit more.
I'm going to go contrarian from what you guys just said here, because to me, well, me personally, I feel the Doors with Morrison, everything, best American band ever.
Okay. No one's fighting you so far.
I think Jim Morrison, for all his faults with his drinking and stuff, you can see his DNA in vocalists from his point on.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody, most vocalists in bands would love to be Jim Morrison. You can tell that DNA goes through a lot of lead singers, and I think he set the blueprint down for a different type of vocalist. One who, even if he's not the best singer in the world, he took that position and he made it something different and I think better. I think there's a pre-Jim Morrison and a post-Jim Morrison, and I think he sort of set that new standard.
Yeah, no, I think I get what you're saying because he was confrontational in a way that people weren't back then, like in rock bands. Like the closest you would come to maybe at the time might have been somebody like Mick Jagger, but he really wasn't a confrontational lead singer. He did his share of drugs and alcohol, but when he was on stage, it was kind of okay, but Morrison would actively try and taunt, right, and really kind of get at the crowd, almost like a social experiment. So from that standpoint, absolutely, that there's an added attitude or element of punk in that, right? In that trying to get a reaction out of the audience of why did you come here? Did you come here to look at me, or did you come here to hear music? Because that's where he kind of eventually got to, of shedding that Lizard King persona, the tight jeans and the leather and all that. Mm-hmm. And Morrison Hotel is kind of where this is starting to come out. Because if you look at the previous album, The Soft Parade, it was very much a lot of horns, very poppy, a great album in its own right, but not, Morrison Hotel, it would not be the logical follow-up to something like that, right? You would kind of keep going in that direction, but instead they decide to strip it all back, it all back down again, kind of almost like a restart, almost like this album is almost like a Doors reset.
But it in some respects, it's not not the logical follow-up, but at the same time, at that point in rock and roll history, that's where you've got the Stones going from their Satanic Majesty's Request to Beggar's Banquet. You've got the Beatles going from Sgt. Pepper and Magical Mystery Tour into the White Album. Mm-hmm. And everybody's listening to the first two band records and saying, let's, maybe we need to strip back some of the psychedelic shit. So while it's not logical, you could also understand the headspace that might have allowed that to also take shape.
Absolutely, because you're also, keep in mind, this album came out in 1970.
Right.
So the hippie stuff was the psychedelia had a very short shelf life. Like, it really wasn't carrying over. So they had kind of let that go by the time, I dare say the way I look at the Doors album, since there were 6, I look at them in groups of 2, Eric, and tell me if this tracks with you. The first 2 are psychedelic, right? It's like, their debut album, Strange Days, kind of like the psychedelic stuff. Waiting for the Sun and Soft Parade are the middle 2 albums, and they're both kind of transitional. Waiting for the Sun I love because it's just so mellow. Yeah. And just so just so chill. And then, the Soft Parade is kind of like their pop thing. And then their last 2 albums are like probably like the final form of the Doors, right? Is how they carried on. They probably would have continued in that direction. Like the last 2 are like them really kind of stripping it away, understanding what the Doors, when you take away the psychedelic stuff and all that, what is the Doors? They're a blues band, which they were in the beginning, but there was so much of the psychedelic stuff on it, right, Eric? That was kind of got lost in the sauce.
Yeah, they stripped it down to the bare bones of the foundational, which is blues. And one must wonder what, like I always say, if Hendrix would have continued, would that have been the same thing? In the 70s, I'm always curious to know what he would have done then and on. But like Chris was saying, like most of these bands were it's a decidedly more sort of rock approach, a lot more guitar, less of the weird sort of, trippy kind of thing, and developed a very, very particular sound, a very no frills type of sound. I dare say it was just, just straight up guitar and but it, to say that it was a resurrection of the band, I don't know. Because like you say, Dean, they were always blues, but I think it's more or less, was it Morrison's influence that made them more psychedelic or was it the band's decision or the producer's decision to go that route?
Yeah, I think they were all kind of on that trip together, probably. Yeah. It seems like this album and LA Woman are probably closer to what they were like live, right? Because there's not all that flourish that the Soft Parade had. This sounds like, okay, they can just probably play this live and it's going to sound the same because it is so stripped down, because it is so to the point, right? And kind of letting their musicianship show, as opposed to how complex can we make the arrangements. Let's kind of bring all that down and just kind of keep it simple. And what Morrison Hotel accomplishes is we get to hear Robbie Robertson like really flourish, because the songs are kind of blues oriented and more straight ahead rock oriented. Like he doesn't get lost in the swirling organs and the droning organs that they would have on like the end and all that kind of stuff. So
Krieger's not doing nearly as much of this sort of slide, sort of pyro, those weird, say like what he was doing on Strange Things, for example, on Strange Days, for example. Here it's just, straight up just rock, blues rock, just good blues rock. I mean, Roadhouse Blues, that's like a bar. You hear that kind of shit in a bar, like that's just, really, sort of raw and, and I think that's probably the way it was recorded too, right? If I'm not mistaken, in the studio, very, very live, very sort of on the floor. Whereas, because they weren't had to worry about, overdubbing a lot and doing a lot of those weird effects and stuff like that. So yeah.
Rob, Roadhouse Blues, one of the best opening tracks on an album ever, you think? Does Roadhouse Blues being the first song really kind of set the table for this album? Like kind of like the Changeling does on LA Woman. Like when you hear the Changeling, like, okay, like that kind of is like what you're getting.
Yeah. The opening riff on Roadhouse Blues is so iconic. Everybody hears that, and everybody holds up their beer and starts getting fired up. It's it's like a perfect opening song, I think, for an album.
Yeah,
and became their opener for for whatever live concerts they had left. That was their opener for the ride out to the end.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, because they were, if the Doors live was a very different experience than their recorded stuff, and they would do a lot of blues songs, a lot of traditional blues songs. I mean, and it would be like 8-minute soirees into musical experimentation. The thing about Morrison Hotel is it doesn't have that huge closing track that every other album has. Usually there's a bit, the last track is an opus.
Yep.
From the end to the soft parade to 5 to 1, like they usually all have like this big statement, and this goes out with Maggie McGill, which is just kind of, I think it's them settling into that and saying, yeah, we don't need to kind of be beholden to that all the time. We could just kind of, let's just make an album and just kind of whatever kind of comes out. And you kind of have like sea shanties on this, like Land Ho, and it's an eclectic album, I think, for the Doors also. It just it's very simply made, but that doesn't mean it's no less eclectic by what kind of material they're covering, which kind of gives us a glimpse into the headspace that they're not trying to make the big statements that they were, Follow Me Down and 5 to 1 and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of like, okay, this is them kind of like, yeah, we did all the heavy lifting, right? You think?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that their albums, I think, are just a mechanism for, or something they could use when they go on the road. I mean, to me, the Doors are a quintessential live band. Not that I ever saw them live, but you watch the old footage of them playing live, and I think that's where they really shine, because Manzarek, Densmore, Krieger, they all had like jazz backgrounds and stuff like that, and this jamming on stage and letting Morrison do his thing. I think that's where they really shined. I think the albums, as much as I love them, it was just a vehicle for something that they could use on stage.
So Chris, to that point, do you think? Before we're going to just take this little side road before we get back into the album, but do you, based on what he's saying, because Rob makes a really good point. Do you think that the Doors, had they stayed together, might have taken more of a Grateful Dead approach?
I think so. I mean, and I mean, that was one of the things like I said this morning, I happened to pop on my way to work, an interview they did with Rick Beato. And one of the things he asked him, he goes, what did you guys, and he was playing, the one record he didn't talk about was Morrison Hotel, but they said, yeah. When they were playing, he was playing tracks. He said, "Is this what it sounded like live?" And the one thing that they said is, "This is what we sounded like. This is how we sounded when we played live. The only difference is that we would improvise and stretch things out and make them longer and not necessarily follow the same arrangements and things. I think they meant as far as like tone and the way they played, but they stretched out. So to me, like without a singer like Morrison to be like that front man, they might, even if Morrison had lived, I mean, the Grateful Dead had Pigpen, right? I mean, obviously Pigpen's no Morrison, but that same kind of role, I mean, there's nothing to say he couldn't step off stage and let these guys do what they do, because they're fantastic musicians.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. Eric, this is the first album without a hit. I mean, these are, there's FM stuff, right? Roadhouse Blues and Waiting for the Sun. I mean, there is stuff on here that is radio stuff, but no like radio hits. It's curious that You Make Me Real is what they would release as a single.
I mean, this was an album that growing up, it was probably my least listened to record, not because it's a bad record. It's just
no hits.
No hit. I mean, there are plenty of songs that appear that were played on, like you say, on the radio. So for me, if it's played on the radio, I mean, it's naive of me to say this, but it's that to me, that's a hit. So if you hear stuff like Peace Frog and Waiting for the Sun, for sure. I mean, of course, how many compilations these songs appear on as well?
Oh, forget it.
So everything. It's more or less, less of a hit, sort of a pop hit, more of a sort of just best of, and there's a lot of great stuff on here.
Yeah,
that they mined off of this record to put on things like Weird Scenes and of course the reissues much later on, when all the the remixing and everything, is a lot of songs from this record I've noticed that appear there. So I mean, just a lot of like chestnuts, that deep dives that you like to go, which requires you to really listen to this as an album, rather than just So you're not really looking for like that one single off of this record, although you may know, you're going to know Waiting for the Sun, you're going to know Peace Frog, you're going to know Roadhouse Blues, because they were played very much on FM radio. So
you brought up two important things which I wanted to get to. First, you brought up Peace Frog and Weird Scenes Inside the Gold Mine. Yeah. And those two songs are really, for me, really important, because I was not a huge Doors fan, just much like Zeppelin. I knew the hits. I had the Doors' greatest hits probably, and I knew that stuff. But I was driving around with my friend Johnny, who was into the Doors. He was kind of really into the Doors, and he had the cassette of Weird Scenes Inside the Gold Mine, which is a compilation.
Yep.
And Peace Frog came on, and it immediately changed. It started me down the rabbit hole, because I hadn't heard a song like that by the Doors. Everything was kind of like Touch Me and Hello, I Love You. But Peace Frog had such a different feel to it, because there's like a vocal and a counter vocal, which you really didn't have on Doors songs, right? There's no backing vocalists in the Doors. Like, they don't have oohs and ahs people. Like, they're kind of a straight ahead four piece. But when I heard Peace Frog and then go into Blue Sunday, that totally like changed me. I'm like, this is something different. This is more than what I thought the Doors were. Like, I hadn't experienced the dark edges of the song The Soft Parade and some of that other stuff in 5 to 1. But when I heard Peace Frog from Weird Scenes Inside the Gold Mine, it absolutely changed me. Absolutely. Was like, oh, okay. I'm awake now. And now it's time to get some Doors albums and check it out. And where did this come from? And it was from Morrison Hotel, which, Eric, you perfectly nailed it. It's not a long album. You just put this on and it's kind of one of those ones that you can kind of chill with this album. It really is kind of
absolutely.
It's not psychedelic chill. It's just kind of them, like I said, just kind of falling into place and just kind of falling into stuff. And going where the music takes them,
Right. But would you say that this might have, back in the day when coming off the Soft Parade, I don't know, was that a divisive record to a lot of fans because of all the overproduction? And then you come to something like this. What would this have been as a fan if you were listening to that and then coming to this? Would you consider this album a disappointment? because it's just so like, the contrast is just so like stark and, but yet, dare I say bare, like, right. I mean, it's very, they don't have the usual thing. Like, would this be considered a letdown for some fans? Chris, what do you think?
Chris, take that.
All right. So from what I was reading and just what I know from history, the Soft Parade was looked upon as kind of like the sellout record because it was like all these horns and brass. And Rob, if I'm wrong, please correct me because I'm sure you probably know this better than I do. But like as a lead singer, they said he was almost. Even Robbie Krieger has said it. Like he was almost too perfect on "Touch Me." Like he had too much of that Sinatra in him. So, and you remember a lot of the people that got into the Doors initially, they were coming from like the underground scene in LA and stuff. So for those guys, Soft Parade was like a sellout record. And when Morrison Hotel came out, it was kind of like, okay, good. They got that shit out of their system. And now this is kind of like a throwback to some of the stuff that was really good on those early records, particularly like, there is very much a blues influence on parts of the first Doors record and Strange Days.
Man on there, you got Alabama song.
So for a lot of people, it was like, thank God, we're not getting another Soft Parade. We're getting something that's a little more akin to what we like the elements we like about the Doors.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great point. I think this, and that's why I call Eric. That's why I call it a reset, is because of the Soft Parade, right? It was like that all the excess of that with the horns, and they went for it. And then it's like putting out that small album to kind of reset the game a little bit, reset the board. Yeah. Okay, we did that. Do we continue that? Then we're going to be a bona fide pop band, quote unquote, right? If they continued on that road. Mm-hmm. But then, Rob, the Doors are always going to give you something different. I mean, each one of their, I would say the first two albums are probably the closest sounding to each other.
Yeah.
They're almost like Strange Days is kind of a sequel to the first album. But then when you get to Waiting for the Sun, everything's different. And this has a certain feel to it. Like I said, kind of sedate or calm. Even though the songs are up tempo. There's kind of...
It's I don't know if it's an advantage or a disadvantage coming at the Doors, coming at any band actually, from way after they are after their demise.
We got no choice.
What's that?
We got no choice.
No, I know. Like albums like Soft Parade.
Uh-huh.
We can enjoy it in a different way. Like we weren't back then waiting for the next album saying, oh, is this what they're putting out? So it's sort of, they all get put together, I guess. So you could sort of pick and choose and choose different times of the Doors. I don't know if that's a better way to because like if we had lived, if I was alive for the whole Doors catalog when they were putting these things out, would I have I'm trying to think if I would have had a different take on them, as opposed to seeing that all their material.
I think I may have an answer for that, and it's a little bit of what Chris said. I think that people that got into the Doors initially are not the people that would have been listening to the Soft Parade.
No.
Yeah. Right? I mean, the Doors kind of took them on that path, and they probably picked up a bunch of new, younger audience members with "Touch Me" and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But to your point is, the Soft Parade doesn't represent the previous three albums, and even the album before, Waiting for the Sun. There's no indication that the Soft Parade is coming. Like, it's not even like there was like kind of. We can look at the Beach Boys and look at the album before Pet Sounds and know that there's something coming,
mm-hmm.
And some artists kind of, tip their hand, but with that, there's nothing. And then likewise with Morrison Hotel, right? There was no indication that after the Soft Parade that this album, an album that's kind of a little more dirtier, a little more hands in the dirt, working it a little bit more was to be the next release, that they would able to understand what they did and course correct.
And yesterday I actually listened to Morrison Hotel, and then I started skipping around the catalog, and I put the Soft Parade on.
Uh-huh.
And when you listen to it within the context of the record, you can kind of understand where somebody in 1969 went, "What the hell is this?" I mean, it's not a bad record. I think the Soft Parade as a song is one of their best songs, and I really do like "Touch Me," but I can understand how a fan might have been like, kind of like, taken aback when they threw that record on for the first time.
I mean, Wild Child is on there. There's a lot of great stuff on there.
The whole Doors experience is, if you come to it, especially when we came to it late. Dean, we got into them again in the 80s, like a lot of the stuff, but
late 80s.
I like looking back, and I like, well, even now, even more so now that, we're getting older, and it's just, you take the bad with the good, and you just appreciate that there's such an eclectic, catalog of music under that, that same umbrella there. There's just, they tried something different. Does it work? Does it doesn't? There's, like you're saying, there's tracks on that album that are great. My brother loves that album. Believe it or not, Soft Parade. He argues with Zach, my son, a lot, because Zach can't stand it. He's a Doors, purist, as but I'm kind of in the middle. I'm like, this isn't, it's not.
I think the Soft Parade as well.
Yeah, it's just really polished. It's really overproduced for what they're trying to represent. But yeah, I mean, I just appreciate the fact that there's all of these different things, different facets.
Yeah. One thing about the Doors that my friend Dan, who's a huge Doors fan, his sister one time came to us and said, everybody goes through a Doors phase. And I think that's true. At one point, at a certain point in everybody's life, they're big into the Doors, Yeah.
Yep.
Some people stick around and stay longer, but it seems like everybody always at one point in their life are like, I'm into the Doors,
Yeah. It's usually that rebellious time, because you read about Jim Morrison, and he was writing poetry, and he was doing things that were antisocial, and that kind of stuff. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm young. I get it, man. Come on.
We definitely, I was captured by his spell, if you will, at the time, sure. But then you read
in college.
Yeah.
When I was in college, it seemed like every dorm room had that picture of him where he's like got his hands in the air like this, and everybody had that double CD set with that same picture on the cover and all that stuff.
Yep, absolutely. Morrison Hotel, for me, I wrote when I used to write a blog, and not before podcasting. I wrote a blog post about albums that I associate with seasons. And for some reason, Morrison Hotel is an autumn album for me. For some reason, it evokes autumn. It evokes the color brown. It evokes leaves. It evokes the season changing. I don't know if because the song Indian Summer is on there that kind of anchors it for me, but this album just has that feel of just kind of things are calming down, after the summer, and you're kind of going into cooler weather. Like this album for me is like an absolute autumn listen. It enhances the listening experience for me. Do you guys have a feeling with this album, or in general, that certain Rob's shaking his head? So
I can agree. When you started to say that, I couldn't picture listening to this album in like the heat of the summer.
That's LA Woman. LA Woman is the middle of the summer album. That's like we talked about in our episode. It evokes sweating and heat. Right? Like you're in an apartment that has no AC but a fan that's barely working. Like that's what it feels like, But this one is a little different, right?
Yeah. I definitely agree. When you started mentioning the color brown and leaves, it fit right in. It was like a puzzle piece. Yeah, I can definitely sense that.
Eric, seasonal or no? I mean, I agree. I don't listen to it in the fall, but you get what I'm saying, right?
I totally agree. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Indian Summer. Waiting for the Sun. I'm thinking of when I hear the song that that was should have been on that record, personally, but I think of that album cover of Waiting for the Sun, and it has that sort of back, the lighting, the backlit
Yeah. Nice.
So when so a lot of the songs reflect that as well. So to me, it's like sort of part and parcel there, but the whole idea of them just like running into this hotel or this and taking that picture, if you heard the story, is like they weren't allowed in there.
Nope.
It kind of says a lot about the record to me. It's like it's just how like loose this thing is, and just how I'm not going to say downbeat. It's because it's not, but it's just so sort of off the cuff, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of mellow. It takes its time on some of the stuff.
Yeah.
Now, Chris, you were kind of like no. Like
What?
talking about if there's albums that evoke a season for you.
No, I said albums evoke a season. I just never thought about it with the Doors, but there are definitely bands where I feel it. Like I always think of Van Halen as like a summer band, like that kind of stuff. But I've never thought about it within the context of the Doors before.
All right, because I thought you were like, I don't feel that way. I'm like, wait, you absolutely don't feel that way at all? I mean, outside of like holiday music, which kind of
no, they're definitely bands that I think definitely are more meant for certain times of year than others.
Sure, certain genres too. I think a lot of prog rock you could definitely put in
winter because it's cold and unfeeling.
Oh, man. You set them up for that, Eric.
I say that.
I know. I did it on purpose. Yeah.
Just to touch on what Eric was talking about with the album cover and them jumping in there. The sad thing is, just like a year or two ago, that place had a fire.
Yeah, real bad.
Yeah.
Day after Christmas last year, it didn't totally burn down, but burnt enough that they didn't reconstruct it or anything. Like they didn't rehab it to get it back to.
So I have a question. Now this thing is set up. The sides are set up with two separate titles. You got side one is Hard Rock Cafe. Yep. Side two is Morrison Hotel. What's that about? Because I don't know. I don't know the story behind that.
I've never sought to find out, but Chris might know. Seems like
let's go.
Thank you. From what I was reading, after they took the picture, they went and they got there was a bar down the block actually called the Hard Rock Cafe. That's not the Hard Rock Cafe that everybody knows. It's like a tourist trap in major cities now. It was a bar. It's actually the bar that's in the video for Beat It too. But they went in and got a drink there, and they took a picture outside, and then I think there was talk about naming it Hard Rock Cafe at first, and then they switched to Morrison Hotel. I forget. I don't know the exact sequence of events, but that's kind of like what it was.
But it kind of alludes to the idea that there is this setting itself up for each, like the sequencing of songs. Is it any kind of a context there, or any kind of a concept that they're going for? Or
well, I mean, if just off the cuff, since you brought that up, I mean, the Morrison Hotel side or the side two is much more mellow.
Yes, it is. Very much more
chill. The Hard Rock Cafe has Roadhouse Blues, Waiting for the Sun, You Make Me Real, Peace Frog. I mean, those are all Blues Sunday is the only down tempo song. Even Ship of Fools, everything is up tempo.
Okay.
On the Hard Rock Cafe side, and the Morrison Hotel side is it's all kind of chill. Land Ho, The Spy is down tempo. Queen of the Highway, Indian Summer, Maggie McGill is kind of middle of the road, but it's certainly not a rocking song. But yeah, it could, it's interesting that you brought it up. I never really looked at it in front of me like that with the sides.
But even Land Ho is like super upbeat with that, like really like that fuzzy bass tone at the beginning and all that stuff. Like, that doesn't really. I mean, as mellow as all those songs are, that one almost kind of like stands out on that side.
Yeah, written by Morrison and Krieger. Robbie Krieger, he gets a lot of either the co-writing credit or writing credit. He was like we talk a lot about Morrison, but Krieger was also the secret weapon. He was no slouch when it came to. I mean, he wrote some of the hits. He wrote Light My Fire, and he wrote Touch Me, and it was originally called Hit Me.
Yeah.
And Morrison's like, I'm not singing a song telling people to hit me. Like, you got to change it. I'm not singing, come on, hit me. Like, he's just like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, Touch Me is a little bit more.
Yeah.
Seriously, I'm not making that up. I read that somewhere. It was about blackjack.
But I think Krieger is kind of the understated secret weapon of the Doors as far as lyricists, because he can match it. Sometimes Krieger wrote a song that is kind of that flowery psychedelic stuff that you think Jim Morrison wrote, and he was able to kind of channel that, and was a very capable songwriter in his own right.
And when Morrison crawled into a bottle, Krieger was kind of the one that picked up a lot of the slack when Morrison wasn't able to hold up his end anymore the way he used to.
Yeah, kind of like kind of the reverse situation, Rob, of Zeppelin, right, on Houses of the Holy. On Into the Outdoor, right, when Page had kind of checked out, like Plant and John Paul Jones kind of picked up the slack.
Yep.
Robbie Krieger was available to that. It's good that they didn't have everything pinned on Morrison, because he was so unreliable, right? Such a random element that you needed to have somebody else in the band.
And to harken back to the few podcasts back when we did the top guitarists, I think Robbie Krieger, he's top. He's a top guitarist.
He's amazing.
I love his playing. He's a great guitarist.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, this album really highlights that, because he's doing like a scorching solos in Roadhouse Blues, but then on songs like Blue Sunday, it's just very tasteful, the solos and
the slide work on those songs is amazing without any distortion on them. It's crazy.
Yeah, each one. And that's what makes the Doors so great. Like you had said earlier, is they all had varied backgrounds, which brought them all together. Densmore was the Latin swing and jazz, and Krieger was the flamenco style playing and the finger playing. And Manzarek was just able to kind of cover bass, playing bass lines with his left hand and playing. And then you have the crazy out there lyrics of Jim Morrison. It's kind of like four really literally. If they each led their own band, it probably would have been four different bands.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they were each in charge of, if they were the band leader, and that's what makes the Doors so formidable, I think, is that they weren't just like musicians that were kind of getting by. They were all accomplished in what they did. Morrison was an accomplished lyricist. He was a great wordsmith. He knew how to play with words as image. Like he's one of the best. Like, even though this stuff seems, disconnected or not connected, his wordplay is probably bar none. He can create landscapes in your mind of stuff, and it's disconnected, but you're totally getting it.
And what's important is how the music was arranged with the flow of what he was writing. The sentences. There is a method behind that. You can't just put words and then, whatever. They don't necessarily rhyme all the time either. There's like this long poetry going on. And they were able to just surrounded with this eclectic mix of musicianship. And it was just very unique. There always will be one of the most unique bands ever. So Rob, I totally agree. They're certainly one of the greatest American bands that we had to offer. When they're competing with people like the Beatles and all these other British acts and all this prog that was coming out of Britain as well at that time and stuff. So, but the Doors were we got them under our belt. So that's
if I'm not mistaken, I think the Doors were the first band to have 6 or 7 first American band to have 6 or 7 consecutive gold selling albums. I think the 7th is because of the Doors 13, which was a compilation album, but it was put out in between maybe Soft Parade and this album, I think. I think they were the first American band to have 6 or 7 consecutive gold selling albums. So that's no joke. That does speak to, other American giants like the Beach Boys in the 60s and other ones, that the Doors were able to kind of do something that a lot of them couldn't. As much as they weren't huge hit makers, and as much as they kind of did things their own way, and as much as they seemed like a ragtag motley crew, right, of a bossa nova drummer, but all this fits, all those sensibilities fit together. Like Eric said, for them to make all this work and keep everybody happy, right? To keep Densmore happy doing the kind of stuff that he likes and the freeform drumming, and to keep, Robbie Krieger happy where he's contributing, and it sounds like it should be a holy mess. But it really isn't,
And that's rare to have a band that it is definitely everybody comes to, there's everybody's contributing something unique, something, there aren't a lot of, if you think about it, it's just a lot of great bands, but just a lot of bands that are just backing a front singer or a great guitar player or what have you. But to have a band that is definitely the sum of its parts, I guess you could say is bar none. It's one of the, like I said, the uniqueness of that is you tend to grab hold of those people. Those are the people you notice, the people you want to listen to, I think. So, yeah.
Where does I guess we'll go around. Chris, where does this album rank in their discography for you, Morrison Hotel?
There are three that I kind of rotate between that I kind of see as it's hard for me to. But I always kind of gravitate to this one, the first one, and LA Woman. Like I kind of hold all those three kind of like at the top, and depending on my mood, which one would be number one. But usually, like the first album is the one that I.
One, 5, and 6.
So 1, 5, and 6 are my top three Doors records.
Rob,
oof, that's tough. It's like asking me to pick which one of my children I like the better. It's like
Rob, which one of your children do you like better?
Usually when it comes to the Doors, I love having like things like Spotify and things like that now, because I can just say play the Doors and whatever comes on, I'm happy with it.
There's not a bad track in the bunch, really.
And it's just.
So are you reflecting? Is that what it seems like? That's what you're doing.
I mean,
got to pin you down to something.
Sort of, as the same case with me with Led Zeppelin also.
Yeah.
I sort of go through phases with albums. I don't prefer one or the other. I may prefer to listen to this one at a certain time.
Uh-huh.
But I don't have. It's not like a hierarchical thing with me. It's just whatever certain moods I'll be in, I'll listen to this album, or certain moods I'll be in that album. But I mean, I do listen to this album all the time. I mean, Doors are on my phone. I'm listening to Doors every day.
Okay,
pretty much.
Right, so the whole thing. Eric, do you have do you have something where this fits into, or is it the same type?
I'm with Rob, and like I said, I mean, and again, this isn't just applied to them; it applies to a lot of bands. But there is no ranking. There's just a particular mood.
Also a preference, though. I mean, if you had all 6 albums laid out in front of you.
I mean, if I had to choose, what to me would be their definitive, what's their definitive record, I'd probably have to go with their debut.
Okay.
That would be my, probably go-to, because it's such a formidable debut. But I love Strange Days. That we did that one. I love the weirdness of that.
Yeah.
But like I said, if I wanted to listen, when I know going in that this is an album that I know is going to be not that, and I'm in the mood for something, more off the cuff, more blues rock, I'll definitely go with this one or LA Woman. Sure. Right. I mean, but it's just hard, but I also love the compilations too.
Well,
Weird Scenes I think it's a fucking great record on its own, because it has
was my introduction to the Doors.
It has all of the best weird shit on it, like the dark stuff.
It has Who Scared You on there too, which was not available in anywhere for a long time, which was a great song.
Yeah.
All right. So if we're doing that, if we're laying out the 6 albums and saying grab one, or what Chris did. I'd go if I'm picking. I'd go 3, 5, 6.
Okay.
I'd go Waiting for the Sun, Morrison Hotel, or LA Woman would be one of the first 3 I'd grab. I would not grab the first 2 or
really,
right? It doesn't mean I don't like them, but if you're saying what here's they're all out spread in front of you. What are you going to grab? Because I love Waiting for the Sun. I just think it's a magical. That's an early summer album because it's just
that's Zach's favorite
things.
Right.
Just they're really good at evoking.
Yeah.
I don't think they do it on purpose, but yeah, this I wrote more that this album is more sedate and introspective. It just has that calm down feeling. Morrison isn't, shouting as much like in the Soft Parade, when I was back there in seminary school, which I love. Again, I love
that so much.
But you know what? It's kind of like, what? Let's take a break from that. Let's kind of get away from that bombast and the pompousness of that. And almost, like this is kind of like a small album for them. It's kind of, like I said, it's kind of dirty. It's gritty on side one, but it's also intimate on side two. The Spy is just kind of a really
that's a great record.
Slow burn love song. Queen of the Highway, Indian Summer, all that stuff is just so atmospheric.
It plays to the idea that they can do something like this. Yeah. The band can come together and just produce just great, music.
Put out an album, yeah.
Put out an album. We're not. This isn't like we're not getting weird here. This is just, it proved that they could carry on with something like this. But I dare say, they might have gone back to something weirder along the way too. But would have been nice. But or perhaps they do a jazz album or whatever. But just the facets, aspect of it, and just the different sort of categories that they could put themselves in, and just the Doors could do that. You want to listen to blues rock? You got the Doors. What? No, because they did the End and all that kind of stuff. It's like some people might just think of the Doors in that context, but it's just like no, they've proven that they could. They're right up there with the likes of these early blues bands, blues rock bands of the period. So
and to that point, Eric, the last record they recorded. They did two after Morrison died. Full Circles have got a lot of jazz flavor on it, so they definitely would have. I think jazz and blues would have been their move forward, because then even after the band after the Doors broke up, that Densmore and Krieger put together was just a straight up blues rock band. So
and that would have been cool with me. Instrumental, just well, not all the time, but just but to have that in their repertoire as well is very
taking
cool.
It out there, yeah.
Rob, before I kick it over to you, it just when Eric was saying that, it reminded me of Spinal Tap when they were Spinal Tap Mach 2, like when it was free. They're playing at The Great Adventure, and it's like freeform jazz because.
We're not going to do a 90-minute jazz exploration in front of a festival crowd.
It's like, this is Spinal Tap Mach 2. All this jazz stuff, and the people are
Jazz Odyssey.
There was only 9 people there to begin with.
Oh man,
that's a great scene in that movie.
I can't wait to get my hands on that, man. It's coming out.
They were so
Criterion's putting it back. It's back in the collection. It's coming out in September. I can't wait. It's such a great movie.
I saw the trailer. I can do it Spinal without a sequel. We don't need it. It's not gonna.
Yeah.
Anyway, Rob, what did you have? I'm sorry, I took it away from you.
One thing that was very astute with Jim Morrison too is I remember an interview he did, and they were asking him about future, the music and stuff like that, and he sort of nailed it. He was saying in the future, music's probably going to be made with computers and things like that. And that's back in 1970. So, I mean, he nailed it. That's what you hear today,
Yeah, I think I envision one person with different tapes and things kind of controlling, which, basically, someone Thomas Dolby. He kind of predicted Thomas Dolby and those types of artists are kind of self-contained and do everything. So, all right, let's start to close this out. So everybody gets a choice from Hard Rock Cafe, and you get one choice from Morrison Hotel. So, Chris, what is your what's your appetizer from Hard Rock Cafe, and what's your entree from Morrison Hotel?
All right, so from Hard Rock Cafe, and because I developed a real appreciation for it this week is Waiting for the Sun, because it's one that I never really. It was always Roadhouse Blues for me until this week, and then Morrison Hotel would probably be The Spy.
Good. All right. Rob?
Let me think. Probably from Hard Rock Cafe, it's got to be Peace Frog for me.
I think if you take Peace Frog, you get Blue Sunday for free because
if I had known that, man, I would have taken Peace Frog, man. That's not fair.
Well, it goes right into it. They said there's a segue. It's kind of like one song.
It's so awesome. Yeah, that's really cool.
Chris, you got to make that determination on your own. I can't hold your hand. So you're going to go with Peace Frog and Blue Sunday. And what about for Morrison Hotel?
For Morrison Hotel, I've always liked Indian Summer, and I love the guitar in that because it sort of has a reminiscent of The End. It sort of has that same flavor,
that noodling kind of guitar that he's doing. Let me make it easy. I'm taking exactly what you took. I'm taking Peace Frog, Blue Sunday, and Indian Summer. Go ahead.
And one thing, for anybody who's not into this album, who's getting into this album, I definitely suggest to get the reissues they had, because they added a whole bunch of like studio takes of a lot of these songs, and you sort of get a different side of the band hearing it and stuff like that. Yeah. It's really great.
A lot of the studio chatter and working up. So Eric, Hard Rock Cafe and Morrison Hotel.
I'm the same.
Peace Frog, Blue Sunday, Indian Summer.
Yep.
Nice.
Interesting. Here's when you know it's one song because it appears that way on Weird Scenes. Peace Frog and Blue Sunday. It's together. It's one track. It's not split into two. So it's always been one song for me. Yeah. So
Chris, do you want to amend and do?
I'm actually pretty satisfied with my decision. Thank you.
You have
no, but they're great choices though.
You have one opportunity and one opportunity only to go with Peace Frog, Blue Sunday, and Indian Summer.
Waiting for the Sun. What I really grew to appreciate it when I listened to it this week is like what very cool about each of the musicians in that band was fully on display and like fully balanced, and you could almost like listen. Like one listening, you could say I'm going to listen to what the drums are doing. One listening, you could say I'm going to listen to what the guitars are doing, and that's really why I grew an appreciation for that song this week.
And it's kind of it's creepy sounding, you know.
Yes, it is.
Dun, 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 dun,
and that slide guitar is eerie and stuff. Yeah, it's very cool.
It's kind of like supposed to be like a positive song, like waiting for the sun to come, but it has this ominous sound to it.
Almost like a ritual vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I think that's going to do it for this episode. So like I was saying, just kind of, you can grab any Doors album and you'll get something interesting out of it. If you want the hard, straight ahead rock experience, grab this one and then double it up with LA Woman and you'll be fine. You'll absolutely be fine. And then you can kind of go anything from here back is going to, the further back you go, the deeper you'll get into psychedelia. Because it was just what was going on, and that's really what they were all about at the time. So, Rob DiStefano, thank you so much for,
thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
I appreciate.
I love this.
Appreciate you advocating for Robbie Krieger again. I got shafted on the Rolling Stone list of guitarists, so I appreciate.
He did
throwing that back in, making us not forget it. Christopher Clark, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me again.
Appreciate it always. And of course, Eric and I will be here each and every week bringing you the music and movies that shaped our lives. And if you're new here, there's a whole bunch of episodes in the back room you can go check out. So once we're done here, either wait and something will probably automatically play, or you can go select something. We've got, what do we have? LA Woman was like episode number 1 or 2. And then we did Strange Days. And this is only our third. Okay? We're kind of behind on Doors, but we're savoring the flavor, right, Eric?
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
Like Wrigley's gum, the flavor just kind of lasts. Like Wrigley is like one of the few gums that the flavor lasts.
Or maybe
not
it's
like
just
Fruit Stripe
or Fruit Stripes. I was just about to say maybe that
bites and
it's
gone.
accurate.
You get a rush of tangy, and then it's gone. And then it's like, what am I doing? This beeswax for chewing? What do I have here? So, anyway, that's an episode for another time, is retro foods and candies that we liked from our childhood, specifically the Charleston Chew. But anyway, For for Rob, for Chris, for Eric, this has been Dean, and we will catch you on the flip side.
You've been listening to the 3324 podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast and on Twitter at 3324p to join the conversation.